This is the Business Storytelling Show with Christoph Trapp. Name a top 20 storytelling podcast and a top 5% podcast globally. Christoph chats with thought leaders and experts to share tips and tricks that can help you tell your company's stories better to drive business results. Available wherever you listen to podcasts, live streamed on major social media channels, and part of the DB&A television network. Available on most U.S. television sets and streaming on Roku and Amazon Fire. Here's Christoph with today's episode. Let's go.
Let's go, business storytellers. How's everyone doing? Fist bump. Today we want to talk about email marketing. What was going on last year and what's going to happen this year? I'm not a big fan of predictions necessarily, but I still want to dive into what do we need to know? How do we make email marketing better? There's still a lot of crap out there, quite frankly, of people not respecting, dare I say, privacy, or at least my mental health, I guess, because if they just keep emailing me, I have to delete it. What a mess. So today we have a return guest, Matthew Vernhout. He was on the show previously to talk about email marketing. I don't remember how long ago it was, a couple of years ago, probably at this point. I don't think we were live streaming at that point. So let's get him out of the green room here and find out what's on tap for email marketing this year and what worked last year and what needs to go. Matthew, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Always appreciate guests coming back. That means we're doing something right. We didn't upset you too much or anybody too much yet, but really appreciate you making the time. So what were some of the trends we saw last year? What happened? What worked? What didn't work? What was annoying? That's a loaded question, I'm sure.
I think some of the big things that we saw happen last year, obviously within the industry, there's still consolidation. Several email platforms were acquired. Some were merged in through private equity mergers of the solutions. So that happened with a number of different companies. We saw the official launch of BIMI, which is the brand indicators for message identification standard within the Gmail platform. It had previously been launched within the Yahoo Mail platform and universe. So Gmail officially came out with that launch last year. And we've seen a remarkable growth in people adopting BIMI. So it's sort of month over month, significant growth. And then probably the biggest surprise for marketers, and I don't know if it was a surprise, but the biggest impact marketers saw was the launch of iOS 15, which really impacted marketers' abilities to review accurate open rates and understand what was happening with their messages in people's inboxes in the Apple universe. So anyone on a iPhone, iPad, or Mac device could have their opens drastically impacted.
So, the first question I was going to ask you, and then you started talking about iOS, and I'm an Apple fanboy, no doubt here, and maybe we can circle back to this one, is how close do content people and the tech people have to work together? So let's circle back to that question in a minute. And because some of the stuff you talked about, I'm like, I don't even know what he's talking about. Like, where's my marketing ops person? Come on over. Do you know what I mean? Like, how close do we need to work together? How much do content people need to know? But when it comes to the iOS, and I'm pretty sure I blogged about this, 15 is also where it's hiding your email, right? You can hide my email when you sign up. And my theory, I use it all the time. I sign up with whatever they give me so people don't know who I am. And I love it because it's kind of neat, right? People don't know who you are and you can still subscribe. But how many people actually do that? And does that have impact? And my theory so far is that most B2B marketers probably are not affected by it just because you're not on your iPhone and on the Mac, it's not working yet the last time I checked. What's your philosophy on hide my email? Is that going to affect anybody?
So the hide my email stuff, from what I've seen and the data I've seen, it's not as widely adopted. It's a paid feature, right? So if you're not a subscriber of the paid services from Apple. It's not a feature that you what do they call it? Apple Plus or Apple. I think it's Apple Plus. Is that the one? It's a paid feature.
So I don't know
for-
because I didn't sign up for anything. I just got it. So, but maybe I already have something I signed up for and I just don't remember. That's could be.
Do you pay them monthly for services for something? So it's quite possibly no. Okay.
I think so.
There's at least a few of the features that are paid features. The hide my email is not one I've spent a lot of time digging into. I'm an Apple user as well, for like my phone, and I have iPad and stuff. But it's not a feature. I hide my email different ways. I have a different email domain, and I route everything through there, and I can kind of track who's doing what. So I'm not using the private relay service that other people are. But from an adoption point of view, I know people are doing it, but it's not as prevalent as the Apple MPP, which is similar to what we saw the change in the cookie behavior for website analytics. It's now sort of thrown that wrench into the email analytics. So that's really sort of the biggest impact that marketers have seen. People hiding their email, using the private relay stuff. It's not as big of a deal because it's still an email address. It still routes to the end user.
Right. Got it. So, I mean, and at the end of the day, right, whether they know who I am or not, if they have something at some point that I want to buy, I'll buy it anyways, whether you know me right now or not. So I guess from that perspective, it doesn't make a big difference. Now, I know some of the highlights you gave us from last year were more technical highlights. How, for content people, how closely do I need to be aware of those? And I mean, how do I work together with the right teammates to keep up on that stuff as well as content related things?
Yeah. So from a branding point of view, putting your brand logo in email right next to the display name. So if you think about your email client, it likely has an avatar placeholder. In Yahoo, for example, it might be an initial of the brand. In Gmail, it may be a custom logo that you've put in, or like a little human-shaped avatar that is just like a silhouette. But with implementation of services like Bimmy, you can actually then publish your brand logo. And anywhere your email for your brand shows up, it will then put your logo in that place. There's a handful of mailbox providers doing this now, but there are more in the future that are looking at implementing this technology. And the beautiful part about it, as a brand owner, you can then get that instant brand recognition of your logo and the brand recall, as well as just the brand impression directly in someone's mail client when they're looking at your email. They don't even have to open the email. They can see your logo and say, oh, I recognize the logo of Target or Best Buy or LinkedIn or whatever other brand is out there that is sending those messages right in your inbox. So there's a level of recognition, and early indications from brands that I've talked to show that this actually drives open rates, drives click-through rates, drives conversions and purchases, because there is that level of recognition from the end user saying, oh, this is a brand that I actually remember giving my email address to and wanting to hear from.
So, I mean, makes sense. I do that all the time. I mean, sometimes I don't even open my email if I don't know who it's from. And especially when it starts out with, I hope you're doing well. By the way, if you send me an email, I hope you're doing well, you don't want the answer. I mean it. You don't want the answer. How do you know I'm not doing well? You want me to send you? I should, there was somebody out there who actually had like a reply to that email, to that question. And it's like, it's not going well at all. And then they went into this whole diatribe over what's wrong currently. Now, I think everybody maybe now agrees email is not dead. Email still works. People do open their emails, even if we can't track it correctly. Are you seeing that are fewer people clicking, or are people just reading an email, or what other trends from a content side have we seen? For example, my weekly newsletter, very few people click on anything, but a good number of people open and read. So I just started, it's just awareness anyways, and right. I don't really want you to do anything other than read. So I just give you the whole thing, right, in the newsletter. But is that just me, or what other trends have you seen when it comes to behavior like that?
So I think I haven't really seen any drastic changes when it comes to sort of content that way. Publishers are still going to publish things, and in some cases, like you're saying, you give the full article as an example. So you're not necessarily expecting someone to click. You're looking for that open. But if you have a large number of Apple readers, your opens may be inaccurate now. So, there are things like that to consider. And platforms like ours, we've actually just recently launched the ability to tell the difference between someone when we identified it's a human opening it and reading the message, and when we identified it's a machine opening and calling down the pixel to cache the pixel. So, understanding what your audience is doing and the response you want from your audience, like you said, in your case, it's you want them to open. You're not expecting them to click or do a lot of clicking in the message. There are things you could look at, because clicks are actually really good for engagement. Clicks are really good for telling the mailbox providers that your messages are wanted and that people expect to receive those messages from your brand or from your company. So, you may want to start putting in short blurbs instead of like just first paragraph, click here to read more. If you're also including, blog articles or promotions or things like that, and drive that engagement. Other things people will do is click here to reply, right? Reply to my message and tell me what you think. So really the goals haven't changed for most people. What they're looking at is, how do I get better accuracy to determine, is what I'm doing actually working?
And of course, if the numbers don't carry through, that's a little bit of a problem. Now, I can see why it would be good to know if a human opened my email versus a machine, but give me a case where a machine opens an email and that previously was counted as an open. Like, what does that look like?
So with Apple's Mail Privacy Protection Service, so it's the new feature they launched in iOS 15. When your phone is plugged in and it's on Wi-Fi and the mail application is open or running in the background, what they're doing is they're pre-caching all the images, because what it does is it hides your location, it hides your activity, it puts in a layer of privacy between the end user and the marketing brand. So you lose some of the accuracy, and they'll pre-cache everything that's in the inbox. So, services that marketers may have used before, like send time optimization, that would say, Matt reads his emails at 9:30 a.m. and Christoph reads his emails at 10:30 a.m. And then what they'll do is they'll target the delivery of those messages around the time you historically read. Well, now with MPP, all messages look like they're opening maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning, because they're pre-caching the images. And so it looks like an open. So if you can tell the difference between when the user is actually opening the message and when a machine is downloading and prefetching the images, there's a significant difference in the behavior that we maybe could have tracked or maybe could have seen in the past. So that's really where that's happening. Other things, anti-spam solutions or anti-phishing solutions will open messages, click on links, try to determine landing page to determine if there's malware and stuff there. So there's still going to be some of that. But from an open point of view, anyone using an Apple device that's enabled MPP, you can no longer trust that the activity of that end user is the expected behavior of the end user anymore. So that's really the difference that we're looking at.
Very, very interesting. And so I have that turned on. And the only reason I even know that is because every once in a while I go on Wi-Fi somewhere and it says it's currently turned off or unavailable. And then when you leave, it turns back on for whatever reason. So does that work if I have to use, do I have to use the Apple email server, or if I have the Outlook, the Gmail app, does it also do the same thing?
So Gmail is not currently doing, Gmail does do some prefetching. Yahoo does some prefetching. They do it all slightly different. Where it might be, we're doing it when you're actively in the mail client. So there is still some of that like time of day behavior that you can be observed, but they may pre-cache like the next 3 messages you're probably going to read, or the top 3 messages in your inbox. Whereas Apple will cache everything in your inbox if it's in the mail app, which means if it's your Gmail in the mail app, if it's your Hotmail in the mail app, if it's your Comcast in the mail app, they'll pre-cache all that stuff so that when you do go to open it, it's faster for you to get the message and load the images. but also it protects your privacy in regards to the time of day that you're maybe engaging with that brand.
Very interesting. Nothing
It
ever
also
gets
hides your
easier.
location. Sorry, that's the one other piece, is it hides your location because they proxy the open through their VPN networks.
Got it. And sometimes people might like to know where I am for one reason or another. Now, remind us. I know you were talking about your company. You do the that's how the whole human versus computer discussion started. Remind us, what does your company do, and how do people work with it?
Yeah, so Nikkor Cloud, we have a couple different platforms. So one is our CDP, which offers marketing services around email marketing, web-based marketing, personalization, web and mobile push, SMS capabilities. We also offer an email API solution. So if you have a transactional marketing need or transactional messaging need, such as maybe your Shopify e-receipts, you need to send those, we can plug into those types of activities and work on behalf of brands to help them deliver their email in the best possible way.
Cool. So we talked about the past a little bit here. Let's move forward last 10 minutes or so here into the future. What does the future hold? I mean, what do marketers, especially when it comes to email, need to keep top of mind? And what kind of emails work? I mean, we made fun, and I don't think you disagreed when I said, "Hope you're doing well." I think those emails are horrible. Like, don't send that. But some emails are highly relevant. How do we do it?
So there's actually a great discussion that just happened recently on LinkedIn that I was part of around some of those, hope you're doing well. Can I put 10 minutes on your calendar type messages? And I think there are a lot of people that, for lack of better term, spray and pray, right? It's the idea of, I'm going to send this to 100 people and hope that one or two reply. And I'm going to send the exact same message to them, and then I'll send them a follow-up a few days later. And maybe you just get put into a drip campaign that runs through, and message 4 is that, well, if you're not the right person, can you forward this across to whoever should be paying attention to it? So there's a lot of inaccurate or mistargeted or less relevant communications. Even insincere communications. So like you're saying, like, I hope you're doing well, or, hope this finds you well. It sounds like it's a nice, polite thing to do, a nice, polite thing to say. And honestly, I say it a lot too, but typically I'm saying it to people I actually know, and I do hope they're feeling well. I'm not sending a lot of cold emails or business lead type emails. It's not in my realm of responsibilities. But, I think spending a little more time to determine, is this really a message that's going to resonate with the end user? Is it really something that likely fits into their business function or role? As opposed to just hitting the send button and sending to a few hundred people and hope that you get a couple of responses. That's where I think you lose the sincerity of those messages because they just don't sound genuine.
So we have to sound more human, more relevant. Of course, what that means can be debatable because, as you mentioned, right? I mean, saying, I hope you're doing well, that is actually human, right? If you mean it. But I get so many of those, it's just kind of annoying, quite frankly. And I don't even open them. Now, when we send emails, though, what would you say are best practices or things to consider if you don't like the term best practice? I mean, one tip we had on here is write your email and then delete the first third, and that's your email, which I actually think is a really good tip because, but what else shall we consider?
Yeah, I think, I do a lot more on the sort of the commercial marketing side as opposed to the B2B side of marketing. But, relevant content, limit the number of calls to action. I think the one thing, if we're going to talk more about B2B, the one piece that kind of bothers me the most is I'm going to sort of dangle the thing out in front of you and force you to respond. Instead of, I'm going to send you just the relevant information in the hopes that it's so relevant and it's so valuable that you actually read it and reply to me and say, hey, that was great. It's more of, hey, I found this thing. Do you want to know more? So there's some of that. We're not playing poker, right? You're trying to get business. You're trying to build that rapport. Don't dangle the carrot in front of the recipient in hopes that they respond and say, well, tell me more. Because like you're saying, you don't even read them. As soon as you kind of figure out there's not really genuine in their initial opening, why bother reading the rest? So make it that much more valuable. Provide that input. I've been working with our team that does a lot of sort of the B2B stuff to move away from that and say, here's a relevant case study to a business like yours where we've helped them achieve XYZ. There's the value prop. We help them achieve this. We can help you achieve that as well. It's not, hey, did you want to hear more about this thing we did with one of your competitors? Or maybe some, right? It's adding that value up front to actually get someone to say, yeah, I want to know more about that.
So as a content marketing guy, obviously you won't be surprised, but I usually, in most of my email campaigns and email anything, I try to offer value, even if you don't do anything, even if you don't reply. But, here's something I learned in this latest podcast, blah, 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 and then I might ask a question, but it's different. I'm not dangling the carrot. What I'm really doing is, what do you think about this? Or how do you currently do that? Now, if they reply, awesome. If they don't reply, no sweat. But do you think people do that is because the more invested you are in a conversation, the least likely you are to bow out, right? So if you can involve me in a conversation, and the longer, like, chances that you're going to leave this podcast right now are pretty slim. You and I are both invested, right? 22 minutes in. Is that why people do that?
Sorry, no.
you gotta go.
I gotta go. Sorry, my time's up now.
Fist bump. Horrible question, Christoph. But is that the reason, or why do people try to do that?
Yeah, I think if you can, it's just like if you think about networking in person. If you can come up with an engaging part of that conversation in person, someone's going to stick around and finish the conversation. They're not going to look at their phone and be like, oh, I've got to take this call, right? They're not going to say, oh, I have to go talk to this other person over there. It's like the whole, the emergency phone call on your first date. If the date's going bad, call me at 9:00 and tell me there's an emergency at home. And I'll tell you if I need to get out or not. I actually know people who do that at conferences. They set up their phone so they can send a text message to someone if they're in a conversation they want to get out of and can't find a way to exit. So don't make your emails that same way, because the easiest way to exit in an email conversation is just stop replying.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy, or not even open it. But, asking valuable questions, though, I think, so I thought back a few years ago when every time I work with somebody who seems pushy, and I thought, why do I feel that they're pushy? And I think that the trick was that they always got me to respond. And that was because they asked a question that seemed relevant to me. In reality, it was more frustrating than anything. But that's the same model, right? You ask a question that's somewhat relevant, somewhat intriguing, and people might engage in a conversation with you. In the last, we got about 3 minutes here, Matthew. Time flies when you're having fun. What else do companies need to consider this year, whether it's from a technical side or laws or anything else that's on the horizon?
We're going to need about 6 more conversations for that. But let's see. For
3 minutes.
Let me I'll give you my top few. So invest in things like, from a B2C point of view, invest in things like AMP for email. AMP for email, the short version of that is highly interactive emails. You can actually do flip books in email. You can do NPS score in email. You can fill out a form or apply for credit directly from the email without having to leave the email inbox, which is a really cool thing. And a lot of people talk about it, but not a lot of people are doing it. Probably the best example of that I can think of is if you're a Google user and you use Google Docs and you get those emails that say this has been updated, you'll notice that those emails are all AMP activated. So you can engage with those emails. You could actually comment back on a document edit directly from the email. So that's really cool. Definitely spend some time looking at that. From the security side, spend some time looking at services like DMARC and BIMI. Get your brand out there, work closer with your security team. As a marketer, your security team is going to love you for bringing this to them and wanting to engage with those types of solutions. And then also think multi-channel, right? Think about how can you move a conversation from SMS to email, from email to SMS, from email to the phone, and drive those conversations in a consistent way across channels, and in a unified way. There's nothing worse than having your website team doing one thing, your ad team doing something else, your SM marketing, your mobile marketing team doing a third thing, and your email team doing a fourth thing. The message is not consistent. It's confusing for consumers. So spend some time aligning those. And then I think the last part, based on our conversation today, really is think about who you're sending those B2B messages to, and really think, is this a message that's relevant to them and something that they're going to want to spend 5 to 7 minutes reading and replying to?
Fantastic timing. I appreciate you even more to be right on the dot here. Now, you know what? The one thing when it comes to different channels, I have mixed feelings about that. Sometimes I don't want people to jump channels. If I'm talking to you on Twitter, don't make me call you, whatever. But here's the thing that I really like about your comment is do not call me, period. If you want to talk to me on the phone, text me or email me, seeing if I'm available for a phone call. Phone calls are just super distracting. I actually have my phone turned on to filter all the unknown calls into spam.
I do that as well.
And,
yep.
The end. So I don't get you. Like if you call me and I don't know you, you don't even ring. So email me, and then I'm happy to do that. Matthew, it's great to see you again. Thanks for sharing all your tips.
Thanks for having me.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review our show on your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to share this episode with your networks. We appreciate you.